Hello, my name is Joy Wisdom. We've had Mental Health Week in May. We've had lots of highlights, and of course, through the pandemic, depression, mental health has been very much highlighted with people's freedom curtailed. Even before then, over the last decade, mental health has been rising to massive proportions, and especially in children. Perhaps more obvious to me than it is to other people is that underlying depression we can be living with that from a small child. That becomes normal to us. So it doesn't take much to tip us over the edge when we are living on those critical levels of mental health restrictions, concern around mental health. I think one of the things that we don't recognize is that there are great levels and spectrums to depression, anxiety, PTSD, PND, other levels of disorders around psychology and the emotional impacts that we live with. Essentially, we can be reduced to tears by the words that we say to one another. It's the words that are the weapons, the criticism, the biting back, bitterness, the anger, the rage. And within all of that, there is no love. And unfortunately, it's the lack of love and lack of compassion that we crave. The suppression that comes from mental health is very much around the lack of support that we feel. We feel vulnerable. We feel weak, we feel sensitive. From my point of view, if we could improve our words to one another and improve our compassion and love to one another, we wouldn't have so much mental health issues. It is the lack of sensitivity and spatial awareness of others that contributes to long-term mental health. And when I see, as for instance, with the Mental Health Association, this week have put out articles, etc., about us getting out of the house and going for walks and being in nature and all of that sort of thing, which is very helpful. But if you are in long-term depression, it takes a lot of effort for you to get out of the house because we do become conditioned, vulnerable, and so we lose confidence and we lose self-esteem in that. And if you are in deep depression, it's very scary going out there into the world. The longer we stay out of it, the more vulnerable we become. But the sensitivities that we live with makes it very scary to interact, because what we interact with can feel very painful to us. Noise, the energies, the negativity that are around. We can all be living with different levels of depression, anxiety, etc. And some of it, from my point of view, is from transference from the womb, the baselines of what the mother felt, and the depression and the anxiety that the mother felt is passed on or formulated within the infant. And so the infant can be living with levels of anxiety that is not theirs. I despair about around the managing, the coping, the talking about this. People need direct help. Medication is a crutch. It doesn't cure. From my point of view, we need to find the core of the issue for the person to get well again. Medication can become addictive. Obviously, people who are on antidepressants, etc., will become addicted to anything you take. Over time, you can become addicted to. Having lived with family members with depression, anxiety, stress, even suicide attempts, etc., I know very well from a personal point of view, as well as a professional point of view, every person, the reasons for their depression and anxiety is different. There is no black and white. From my point of view, and what I do when I teach practitioners working with people with depression and anxiety, because we do have new solutions for that. And it was one of the things that I promised myself I would find solutions, because seeing my family members going through depression, years taken off their lives, and those people that you love that disappear before your eyes in depression and mental health. It's a grief process as you lose that person. From my point of view, there wasn't any support. Not much has changed since those times. And why we and I have pioneered new solutions for emotional and mental health to help all ages, because it affects all ages, and how we can help them to turn that around. Because while we are thinking and talking about depression, we are creating stress hormones in the physical body. We are affecting our gut system. We are affecting our energetic, and the body declines with depression. From my point of view, you have to deal with the whole of the person, not just the symptoms of depression and anxiety. We don't necessarily talk too much to the client on what their issues are, because from my experience, people are fed up to the back teeth about talking about it, about the living of it. They just want to get shut a bit. They are surprised when they receive a treatment of how different they feel, that they're able to sleep again, because we are working with those emotional action and reaction, the Groundhog Day living that creates decline in the physical body, helping to slow down those stress hormones being produced in the first place. With Mental Health Week, it's a time of highlighting, from my perspective, it's a cluster approach, how we approach mental health. Have a lot of goodwill. From my perspective, there's very little understanding. Professional and a personal perspective, I help to wean them off their medication as they were going through cold turkey, and a doctor was telling us, oh no, they're not addictive at all. There's no proof of that. I lived with it and it was addictive. We had no support. I went to psychiatrists with my family member, and he was only interested in his own data. He wasn't interested in the person. He wasn't interested in giving us any help or ideas of how I could support my family member. It's just come back next week, and from my perspective, it was very much a waste of time. And I told the psychologist so. As you can imagine, he wasn't very impressed with that, but neither was I. You know, we are playing with people's feelings here, and we're playing with their emotions in these discussions. They need action, not discussions. And some of the modalities and these things that are promoted through NHS, etc., as acceptable for people with mental health, I think they're cruel. I really do think they're cruel. And we need to change our perspective. These people need heart-centered help. They need some assistance and action that is going to help them move away from where they are instead of keeping them there, which is a lot of what our setup is now. I have to go across to this meeting because otherwise I won't get my payment at the end of the month. And how do you feel when you go? I feel worse when I come away. These are other people's quotes to me. And do you feel it's doing you any good? No. And why do you go? Because I'm going to be paid. We are creating perpetuation rather than correction. And there is a lot that needs to be learned here. And from my perspective, those who are the professionals are still working to very, very old ways of thinking when we live in a world of where this needs to move on. Do come and have a look at our website. We do have new pioneering, radical and revolutionary methods to be able to help individuals, and individuals have been turned around from having feelings of suicide to being able to feel happy once more in a very short space of time. It is hands-on. There is also remote work that we can do with people, and digitally that we see people and they respond just as well as if they were in the room with you. A lot of balancing the physical body, correcting imbalances to allow the person and the body systems to respond in a way that it's able to, rather than creating barriers of suppression. We can help to find out what that core of the issue is and then help them to freedom and lack of suffering. Check out our website, www.alunas.co.uk. My name is Joy Wisdom, and I look forward to seeing you. Please contact if you would like to discuss further. Thank you. Namaste. Live well and be kind to one another. If we are kind to one another, there would be less depression and anxiety in the world.